Welcome to the Trustbound Podcast. A beautiful
Perfect.
day, beautiful afternoon. Another day in paradise. Very, very
Yes.
glad to have Pedro Marin this time around. Um, Man, I kind of feel that I've known you forever.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, first of all. And time goes by fast, man. I was just thinking about that before the podcast. I think we connected originally. It's very funny. I always remember as one of the interesting parts in my career because we connected over LinkedIn back in, I want to say 2018. I was at a very small startup in Chile. You were at HubSpot, I believe. And I don't know if I reached out to you or you to me, like regarding HubSpot. And fast forward to 2022 when we launched Landa, we were starting with Gabriela and we said, hey, we need to reach out to people in our network that might be a fit for what we do, right? And I remember having seen you like a stellar rise, right? From, I don't know, like a cold outbound message on LinkedIn to, oh, no, this guy's moving up the ranks. Now he's an investor. Like, wow, crazy. So I was like, hey, I'll reach out. And yeah, you joined Landa and then we've been a lot closer ever since. But it's funny how it started.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. It's funny how relationships work. I mean, and I even you know as you say, time flies by when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we've met so much, like so many people, and I really cannot remember the context of HubSpot. I can't recall if you reached out to me, if I reached out to you, uh, if you know. If you ended up, signing with HubSpot, I remember back in the day, and I guess this is where my passion for startups really kicked off. I say that I've always been in tech and always been in B2B and always in not just sales, but in startups as well. That's
Hmm.
sort of not true, but I say it that way because when I was at HubSpot, I think I was I joined, right around when HubSpot had like 1,400 employees. Of course,
Hmm.
post IPO, but the LATAM team was very, very small. So I used to say that to me, HubSpot LATAM was a startup within the HubSpot International startup within the
For sure.
HubSpot scale up because it wasn't, of course, the thing that it was today. And I remember like HubSpot for startups was just kicking off, and it was, you know, we were generating a bunch of traction in LATAM. Perhaps that's how we connected originally. But it's funny, I started doing these, of course, after hearing more and more startups,
Hmm.
coming to HubSpot, coming inbound and wanting to learn about the program. And of course, signing, some of them signed up, some of them didn't. Um, I started doing like, startup Fridays, just meeting with
Hmm.
founders just to learn a little bit more about their businesses uh, and not just my passion for startups, I guess, skyrocketed there. But then I also realized, and I guess the reason behind not just the podcast but itogai itself is that I just love connecting with people. Um, Actually, it's very funny. Um, there's this gentleman. His name is Alejandro Gomez de Grave.
Okay.
Alejo. He co-founded. He pinged me, inbound, and we talked. He was co-founding Aptuno, and then he ended up becoming a client. And then we talked. I was like, yeah, my girlfriend uh, goes to or went to school in Boston, and I went to school in Boston.
Hmm.
And when I asked, oh, where did she go to school? It's like Northeastern. I was like, no shit. I went to school in Northeastern. Well, funny enough, um, he was the partner of one of my great friends from college, Cristina Piedrahita. And then fast forward to like 2 months ago, I was in Colombia as part of the board meeting for my dad's company, and then
Hmm.
my one of my dad's great friends from you know childhood friends, he was he's from Bogota, and he was talking yada yada, but like uh, the family's from Medellin, so he goes back and forth, and like we were in situ, all of us in Medellin, and the guy goes, oh no, my dad goes is like yeah, Organización Equitel. And I was like, wait, what? Equitel? What do you mean? It's like, uh, what does this gentleman, Chepe Piedrahita, has with Equitel? And my dad is like, you're kidding, right? He's the founder and CEO. And I was like, hold on.
Interesting.
So you are Cristina Piedrahita's dad? And he was like, wait, you are Mauro? Like you are
No
the Mauro
way.
from HubSpot? And I was like, yeah. So Christy purchased HubSpot, so I helped Ale, with HubSpot, and
Yeah.
we became friends. I gave him a bunch of coaching around Aptuno. He then went on to raise around and do amazing things. And then Chris, we connected because she was looking for a CRM. She pinged me. I was like, hey, I know that you work at HubSpot. My dad wants me to go with Salesforce, or somebody in the org wants me not to talk shit about Chepe. I don't know if
Yeah.
Chepe wanted to go with Salesforce. Somebody wanted to go with Salesforce, and she's like, no. Uh, like 2 weeks later, she is like, Dad, we are going to buy HubSpot. And then Chepe at this board meeting, dude, like 10 years later, he goes like, yeah, it's
That's
like
so
my
crazy, man.
daughter just institutionalized HubSpot in the business because like we are buying HubSpot. There's no chance. I have a great friend that works at HubSpot. And then it's funny how life works. So yeah, it's like interesting how you mentioned that like I kind of skyrocketed. Um,
Yeah.
uh, like I don't see it that way. Like in paper, it kind of looks that way, but and I think I already said this in the podcast, and if not, I guess or if I have, I'll just repeat it. Every single
Hmm.
role and every single experience that I've had professionally, so every fund that I'm part of and I was part of, every accelerator, every mentorship, everything has had a referral in the middle, and that to me is
Interesting.
incredibly special. And that's one of the reasons of these podcasts, like and the podcast itself and these episodes, like the importance of relationships and trust. um
Hmm.
and I want to ask you, how did you end up meeting Chuco, the Landa co-founder?
So it's funny. So Gabriel, so I came to Mexico basically to start an e-commerce business.
Mhm.
I had just left the startup we connected over, which is another interesting story for maybe another occasion. But came here. I was starting my e-commerce brand. Wanted to do something like luxury leather products, something like that. And this big prop tech company, a lot of the VPs started sending me messages like, "Hey, we want to meet you, even though you're in Mexico." And I was like, looked at their website. It was like a web portal for real estate. I was like, "No way, I'm going to do this." Like, and so finally, I was like, "Okay, at least I have to go to the meeting, right? No, I have to be polite." So I went, and I was blown away. So the founder was here, two of the VPs. One was Colombian, actually. One from Spain, and the founder from Germany. And so I was like, and this might sound a little bit um, egotistical for me to say, but I swear it was true. It was like the first time I felt like I was the dumbest person in the room. Like, and I was like, oh, I have to work with these guys, right? So whatever they're doing, I want to be a part of it. So I joined that company and we started doing really well. So we sold basically properties through affiliates, which they had done that business in Indonesia very successfully, and they wanted to build it from scratch. And they basically gave me like a junior employee and okay, start doing it, right? So we did well, and I think it was a great month. We had a lot of sales, and they were like, "Okay, let's start scaling this thing." And a bigger company had acquired us from, I think it was the UAE or something like that. So they hired. It was funny because they hired Chuco out of Bird Scooters uh, to actually lead me, and I was like, "What?" Like, so. And I had a great conversation with my VP at the time because he was like, "Hey, man, like you can't take this the wrong way, right? So this guy, we all have a lot to learn from him, and I'm sure you guys will find a way to work together." So I'm from Bolivia, he's from Peru. I was like, putting that guy on top of me, let's see. And we clicked it right away, man. We clicked right away. We worked in that business for over a year. Then he left. But the funny part about all those, that relationship and how it evolved afterwards is all, even now, like for Landa, it all started with one conversation. I remember he came to the office one of the first few days, and we had a bunch of meetings. This was, I know this was post COVID, but we said like, "Hey, where are you going?" I was like, "Hey, I'm walking back home." He said, "Okay, I'm walking back home also." And he started talking about the first company he founded and how his co-founder screwed him or something like that. And we talked a lot about values and like really getting to know each other as persons, like right over a long walk. And then a lot of things has happened after, but I think that was the cornerstone, right, where we really felt like, oh, okay, I align the way this guy thinks, not so much in terms of skills and knowledge, which obviously he's very smart, but on values, man. And I think that was the bedrock for later reconnecting and doing that.
That's awesome. Um, and how did the I actually have two questions. How did the Landa Club idea, you know, came to fruition? And then the other question is, it sounds like it was either a very long walk, or you guys just jumped in and got very personal very quickly. Uh,
Hmm.
and I feel that with those conversations, and actually in our last episode, I was speaking to Rick Roberge about this, um, and he mentioned the importance of being true, right?
Hmm.
And I think that he mentioned something along the lines of that's why some people hate salespeople, some salespeople, and I found that like part of my, I guess, skyrocketed success, as you mentioned, which I I don't want to say I disagree, but I kind of I, I don't want to sound uh,
No, not at all. Not at all. I said
egotistical.
it.
I think that trust has it's so mission critical to everything we do in life. Like regardless if you end up like working again with a colleague, or uh, meeting a stranger at work, and then I guess coinciding on values, and just that person becomes your co-founder, your longtime friend, your investor, your
Hmm.
whatever, right? um what what makes you, when you think of trust and that, I guess, clicking with people, um how important to you is it just being true to yourself, and how does that carry, not just, then piggyback into the second question, how you guys ended up creating Landa, but in Landa's day to day.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was a long walk. Wasn't like super long either, but there's this intangible aspect also that, yeah, it's hard to pin down, but where you, it's easier to lower the barriers with someone. So I don't know how that happens, but I guess we both felt like at ease having that type of conversation. So I would say that was that was part of it. Also, working with each other helps, right?
Mm.
Especially in startup environment. I think you get exposed to everything. If you're a nervous person, if you're like an angry person, so that I think helps. I'll go back to trust because I think it'll tie in nicely after. But the way Landa worked was so Gabriel left to Kavak, a great role. So I stayed at Lamuri, which was the other company, and then he got laid off, right? And we were still talking as like friends and going to barbecues and things. And he was like, "You know what, man? Like I'm done with working for someone else. Like, and he had also like a stellar rise, right? So I'm gonna do one of two things, like sell stuff on Amazon, which was like, man, or I'm gonna start doing like uh, startup consulting. And bear in mind, I come from Bolivia, man. So, s- like an independent consultant is an old person, probably unemployed, that does some reports for you and, get some. So I was like, startup consulting. So back then, okay, like, good luck with that. So he started doing that. He did really well, like really well, and I that was very eye opening for me. And at the same time, he was trying to do a venture backed startup, like in crypto space, which yeah, I don't know how good of an idea it was. And coming back to trust, I think he and his co-founder both very smart, but didn't get quite along. There was a lot of friction. He wasn't happy, and so right around that time, I decided to leave Lamuri and actually take the plunge to doing consulting because I was like, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. What this guy is doing sounds interesting, right? And it's like a nice in between. So I just used to call him for, hey, so how do you price? How do you? And so he sort of coached me through the process. So you could say that's where it started. Like I'm sort of the first Landa customer or success story. So we were talking about it, and at some point, I remember we went out for breakfast, and he was like, "Hey, man, so you're doing consulting. I'm not too happy with this venture. Maybe we could do a community or something like that for consultants. Would you be open to working on that?" And I was like, actually, you should do that, man. Drop the other project, scratch your own itch. You like hanging around with people, building relationships. You're obviously into this consulting thing. So yeah, let's start working on this, man. Like the this one, it doesn't have to make a lot of sense on paper, like for it to be good, right? You just have to like it and have to find an interesting thing. And so we started like that, man. Like one Slack group and yeah, doing some content in Google Sheets. I remember.
Nice, nice.
And in terms of when it got a little more serious, and I'm happy to share this template. So we did like a free cohort, right? Like free community, a lot of interest. So we said, hey, we should start charging for this. Not so much as a business, but to filter people out. And we filled down cohort one, I think was just right before you joined. And then we said like, okay, there's money in the middle, so we should talk about this. And we both, it was a grueling process, super long, tough mental exercise, but we each filled out co-founder questionnaire, which is like 10 pages long, right? Or something like that. It's about values, about how you work, what you do at your worst, what you do at your best, mental models. And I think that was a good starting point because we each took the time to fill it out. We shared with each other, and obviously we had to work together, but you sort of got a really deep dive into the other person, which enhanced the trust, even doing the exercise, right? And going through it. So, so yeah, no, trust super important, man. Uh, yeah.
It's funny. I don't know. Like I don't know why when you were, tell me the story of the forum. I don't know how it works in the U.S., but in LATAM, if you want to get married through like religiously through the church, you have to do. I'm not religious. My wife is, so we got
Mm.
married,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, at church and in the presence of God, you know. and you have to do this course, like this religious course that I thought it was going to be about the Bible and a bunch of stuff. Of course, like it
Oh man.
depends on the people that yeah, that I get teach the course, and we got paired with this couple. You know, I think the gentleman worked at a seminar or something like that. I can't recall. Um, but we had 10 sessions and we each had like 10 booklets. And each session was about a booklet. And
Huh.
similar to the co-founder questionnaire, we had to like fill out like each booklet on our own and then share it with our partner, and then just discuss and come to the next session and like prepare, like debrief and all that stuff. So it's very, very interesting because that or those booklets asked just just great questions, and sometimes
Hmm.
uncomfortable questions that you normally don't ask yourself or your partner or even think about, dude. So like
Yep.
the first booklet I remember was like about yourself, about your partner, like what you think about, like values, family, money, relate, like your
Yeah.
relationships. It was awesome. And then that, of course, like just reading the way how my wife expressed herself and the way like she like thought about me, thought about herself. It's like, it really helps to not just understand yourself better, but understand the other person better, and understand the, I guess, the nucleus of the relationship better.
Yes.
And you know, whenever I speak to founders, either when they're looking for a co-founder or they're looking to raise, it's like, dude, it's similar to getting married. It's like
For
you
sure.
can you can break up, like, right? You can get a divorce, but it's messy, it's hard, it fucks up with your mind. It's just uh so take your time, do your diligence, and just pick accordingly, right? um
Yeah, and it's a rare thing, man. Like I've seen a lot of co-founders and friends that the relationships that have gone awry because it's some people you shouldn't work with, right? Like they're
mm,
just your friends and everything. But trust, I think, like one of the things I value in Landa and also make me take the plunge because, as you know, it's a lot of risk, right? To do a startup. So I was like, we found a good niche, which I think it's new. So that's good, and I have the right partner. So I have 2 out of 5 things you need, which is rare enough, right? So I know I can count on this person. Obviously, I have worked with him. Obviously, smarts and other things, but those two, right? Like we have a good niche, and I have a person that I can trust, and that's super tough to get.
mm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's important.
absolutely. And I even remember it's like when when it was Chuco that reached out through LinkedIn. When he reached out, I can't remember if he said that he was working with you, but of course went into
Figured it out.
like before
Yeah.
replying, went into the website, connections, all that stuff, and you guys already had made public that you guys were working together. My first reaction was like, "Oh shit!" Like this guy is working with Betos. Like, of course I'm gonna reply. So I immediately replied, and then when we met, and I also remember that he was like sort of, because it was early, so he was like
Yeah.
sort of dancing around the fee and like trying to of course, like as a
Cushion it.
founder
Yeah, of
early
course.
stage, it's hard to like price your product, and you don't know how the feedback is going to be like, if uh if prospects are gonna like disqualify you based on the price, whatever. And I can't even remember how much it was, but I
It
was
was
like, dude,
250 when you joined,
okay,
I think.
250.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, like I don't care. Yeah, it's like I'm not even gonna ask for a discount. It's like money, uh, like in this context, money is not important to me. It's like I don't care. It's like I would love to help. Love that you're working with Pedro, and like what you said, like the other thing when we connected, and this is the the similar thing that happened to me with Tomas, and I think that it happens every time. I guess a previous relationship or somebody that you like, you trust, sort of
Mm.
like gets in the middle of that intro, and it's this implicit level of trust,
Yeah.
even though you're a stranger. So the fact that Chuka was already working with you, you know, you guys were doing something, you know, pretty cool. And the fact that we clicked, I was like, yeah, it's like, of course I'll sign up. Here's here's my money. It's like, besides the money, I was like, dude, how can I help? And then
Yeah.
uh, I guess everything uh, just developed from there. And I think that to me, um, the the superpower of trust and relationships is how it compounds. Like for example,
Yes.
now with itogai and bootstrapping, and of course, like it's nerve wracking and it's hard. But one of the most active users, like super users, a guy that you know I speak to him pretty much every week now. Um, and we've had like 7 calls, is Hugo
Mm.
Marin, somebody that I met through Landa,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
In one of
Yeah.
the webinars, actually, no, it wasn't the webinar. It was one of the, it was maybe the last one or the one before that, one of the, uh,
Demo day or one of those.
yeah, demo days where I was a judge with
Yeah.
uh,
Antoine.
Antoine. Yeah, there we go. I I was gonna say Alexandre, but I know that his name is not that. I was like, I didn't want to botch it.
Yeah, yeah, to
Antoine.
chop it.
Yeah, there we go. Um, awesome. Uh, Like, walk me through this. Like, what comes to mind when like thinking about like relationships and trust, and like for example, what you guys are building in Landa, like those, I guess, cross referrals um between the consultants that are part of the
Yeah.
community.
So a lot of things come to mind. The first one is to sort of close my last idea is that one of the beautiful things about trust, other than the compounds, of course, is also it's everything easier. Like for
Mm.
example, working with Gabriel, we don't need no contracts. We don't need to like yell at each other, check up on each other's work. You just know, right? The other person is solid, and it's everything flows easier with that. So whenever you have like great trust relationships, I think it's a pleasure, right? It just feels like it flows. It's easy. Everything moves quicker. So that's one thing I would say. Regarding land, it's interesting, man. One of the things that seems obvious, but that we found out is that people move in packs, right?
Mm.
So if there's something you like, you'll tell your friends about it, and they probably are similar to you in some way. So that was a great insight. That it's sounds obvious, but then you start looking at it like from a business standpoint, and it's interesting. Like in your case, for example, you brought Jose Cardenas. I think you brought Ricardo Prado. I think.
Julian,
Julian is like another example of okay, these people move in packs, and that like if they like what they're doing, they'll bring like other people. So that's super important because also you just need like one great member to spread the word, and they'll bring in more great members, which I think it was one of the great things we did at first Atlanta, right? We really went to our network, handpicked who we wanted to invite, and so then it cascaded from there. But I think you wanted to say something.
it's funny because those three names that you mentioned, Jose Cardenas, eh, Julian Sanchez, and Richie Prado, Ricardo, uh, they're all friends from Mellon. I worked
Hmm.
together. Richie and I go way, way back. We worked together at HubSpot. He was actually the partner development manager for LATAM, and then I, thanks to him and what he was doing, I ended up meeting a bunch of great people and had great success via sort of like helping referral partners give HubSpot LATAM access to their network and sort of like selling through those relationships and those networks. And Ricci invited me to join Melon.
Ah,
Um, and I met Juli there. I met Jose there. And, today they're just amazing. They became work friends and now they're life friends. And it's
friends.
funny
Yeah,
because two of the co-founders of Melon, Andres Gomez, the CEO, and Alejo Celis, uh, the CPO, their parents are great friends with my dad.
that's
And
crazy.
I realized after the fact, and I was telling my dad, it's like, yeah, I'm joining this company, Melon. It's like, wait, is that the one with the ghost? It's like, yeah. How do you know him? It's like, and he told me the story. Um, and I think that trust is absolutely mission critical. Even when you buy things, like for example, um, when I started in sales, I made a pretty stupid decision. So to anybody that's listening that's starting in sales, don't do this. Um, I bought a car with my first big paycheck, and I always wanted a BMW because my dad bought a BMW a long, long time ago. And I was like, of course I trust my dad. Of course I trust his judgment. And I wanted, I was between Audi, Mercedes, and BMW. And then I got a BMW exclusively for the only reason that my dad
That
had a
your dad has
BMW.
one.
Yeah. Uh, and I've had BMWs ever since.
Cool.
He's been a biker for like 50 years. And then, of course, he's getting older and he's like, hey, I think, and I used to have a bike like 15 years ago or what? No, like 20 years ago. Is like, you should buy another bike or whatever because like I'm starting to do trips like to Europe and we rent big bikes and we go to like Switzerland and Germany. It's like
Cool.
you should join in and I bought a bike and I made a big ticket decision in 5 minutes just because it was BMW and just because my dad was like, let's go biking again. And I think that to me is how like trust is so incredibly important to protect, right? Because the
Hmm.
opposite is also true. If you don't keep track of those relationships and you sort of like abuse trust,
Yeah.
then the exact opposite can happen and you can just bomb your relationships and I guess burn a bridge, right? Um,
Yeah. People to put too much on top when it's business related, right? Like you should add value first. You should go and meet people and create trust. But it sounds like very shallow, right? Where
mm,
it's not. It's like usually when trust happens, it's very organic. It's not like you have to give a lead magnet or do this or do that. It's just like being actually curious about the other person, like wanting to help, and that's how relationships evolve. Like, right? I'm sure in the high trust relationships, I've never went in like, okay, I'm gonna add value to this person so that I can get something in return. So I think it's much more organic than that, and people usually miss it.
absolutely, absolutely. Talking about those league magnets and inbound and outbound, that's the concept of this podcast and the concept of trust bound. So I guess, I mean, dude, we can keep talking for the
Yeah,
rest of the day, but I'm sure that you're a very busy man. Thanks again for joining in.
my
Uh,
pleasure.
in closing, when you hear the word trust bound, what comes to mind?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know if I have the best answer, but this is what comes to mind. So what comes to mind is I'm not sure how familiar you are with Charlie Munger. So it's basically Warren Buffett and his longtime partner Charlie Munger. And I remember there was an interview. I used to watch a lot of his stuff at the beginning of my career, and where they were asking him about how did Berkshire Hathaway scale, right? And they were like trying to poke holes into his approach, and he was like, basically, we just take a long time and to meet people, to go to the backgrounds of people, and obviously businesses that make sense. And once we buy them, we just let them run it. Like there's no bureaucracy from headquarters, so it's like a we just how did he say it? We buy companies and trust people immensely, and the more we trust them, they get more trusted, and right, like the more they show that we can trust them, we trust them even more. So the way it scales is like a seamless web of deserved trust, he called it. And I saw that afterwards, like Alphabet and some of these big companies were looking into that approach, which is very organic, especially for a company that size. It's just a web of trust. You have good heads that you can trust, they're trustworthy. And yeah, I think they had once one manager or one CEO or of one of the companies that had some scandal, right? And they were asking him about it, and he was like, "Hey, we had like one scandal in 20 years, right? So there's no perfect system, but the deserve uh, trust web is what makes it work." And I love that because it's not so much engineered or processed, or you have to do an org chart. It's just very, yeah, organic, and especially for a company of that size. So Trustbound, that's what comes to mind. That interview, that segment where he talked about the seamless web of trust and how well it's worked for them. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Love that. What comes to mind with that answer is what goes around comes around, and it's not about you, and it's this element of just being incredibly genuine, incredibly human, and I guess serving others to then serve yourself.
For sure, for sure. And if it's of interest, I actually came up with a. It's a bit raw, but I came up with some a framework of how I think about relationships. I'm happy to share after. I'll send you a PDF and something I wrote. So yeah, it speaks to this whole thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll share it with you after.
absolutely. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, uh, to talk shop about Landa or uh, anything really, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I think we've been using a lot of LinkedIn. So I'm Pedro Marin Campero. So I use both my last names. So I should be easy to find. And same on X. I don't write quite a lot, but I'm active there as well.
Beautiful. And if anybody listening in wants an intro to Pedro, you know where to find me. Pedro, man, thank you so much for accepting the invite, for being here, and for all the wise words.
Thank you, Mao, for having me, for all you do for the ecosystem. And yeah, let's keep chatting, man. I love this.
Yeah, man. Another day in paradise. If this resonated, pay attention to where trust has already been doing the work for you. That's where momentum starts. Learn more at itogai.com. See you next time. I'm Mauricio Suarez, and this is the Trustbound Podcast.